We'll call this meeting to order. March 20th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Here. Here. Do I have the approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, but switching action items B and A and adding a discussion item F, brief discussion of CRP.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Early?
Yes.
Trustee Ott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
Yes.
Yes, and the motion carries. Ms. Mendoza, do we have any signatures back there? Okay. Thank you. Right. So, Brian Riemann? Riemann. State your name and address for the record, please.
So I'm Brian Riemann, that's 323 Weston Avenue. Just by way of information, not requesting approval, we are going to be having a community Easter egg hunt on March 31st between 10 and 11. So we'd like to close Park Avenue between Vista Boulevard and Highway 37 from 9:45 till 11. On March 31st. Last year we had about 120 kids, and the neighborhood is substantially larger, so we expect almost twice as many children this year, and we're going to be having that Easter egg hunt right at that park just south of Park Avenue.
And we've all been given your map here.
Yes, and that, I just had asked the HOA to just advise the board of their activity up there in the street closure, so I don't think there's any approval required, but just an item of information. So,
What was the date and time again?
March 31st from 9:45 until 11 a.m.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks.
thanks,
All
Brian.
right. Donald Borden? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Donald Borden, I live at 121 Shenandoah Way, Lock Buoy 80603. And was curious to see what it would take to get on the agenda. I'm CTO of Green Dragon, which is a third largest cannabis company here in Colorado. We're opening up 4 more stores, including 2 in Thornton, and want to see what the process would be to get on the agenda to submit a proposal to see what it would take to get provisions changed to allow Lock Buoy to possibly get either on the vote to do it. We got quite an extensive package of what it offers the community, you know, $4.7 million investment into our store, basically also adding retail establishments to come with it, much like our store that we're currently building off 136 in Holly. Which was a pretty little rundown area in an awkward way up there, and we completely redid the land, built a park, sidewalks, everything with the 26.7% tax rate coming back to the city, which on our annual estimate is close to $750,000 taxes just off that single location alone to the city, not including the state fees, you know, that we license out. So, you know, being a resident here and working directly with the owners, Andy and Alex Levine, you know, I think there's a lot of stigma sometimes that comes with cannabis, but, you know, if it's done correctly, which we have, you know, being the 3rd largest, we have the only FDA certified MIP as well in the entire United States at this point. So we have a pretty proven track record as well. So don't know what the process would be to get on the agenda to get something like that going to where,
Well,
the owners would like to come up and basically, submit a proposal or,
I was going to inform you, we actually held a ballot measure. It was more or less just to give the board direction, and we put it on the ballot, I believe it was last November, asking, was that two Novembers ago? Or was it on the last?
I'd have to look at the year, but it definitely was not last.
Okay, so, it was this, yeah, because we put that on the ballot asking that question, and it failed. So,
Yeah, I
I think
thought
it's
it was-
something, we definitely look into again, but I think, again, I'm not speaking for the whole entirety of the board, but it's something we'd have to discuss and probably we may want to put back on the ballot to ask the question, to
Right.
see if it's.
Yeah, I know our
something
process
town
with
wants to do.
Thornton took us approximately 1 year because they're also, subdivision and divided with their boards, which is a little bit different. So it wasn't just the city, we had to convince, it was the community as well for their District 36, which I think took us, right around 8 months, which is why we wanted to see what it would take, to submit to the city, plans, et cetera, everything, to possibly get that on the ballot with hopefully something, that would be sustainable with enough backing to, get passed. So it's really not a waste of anybody's time. Knowing, like I say, it took us eight months to a year to really, get to a certain point to where things were just laid out, not, for lack of a better term, all willy-nilly, and, just shot from the hip, where it was something a lot more professional.
Yeah. Now, as I said, this is something that the board has discussed numerous times, and we did do the ballot measure. It's probably something we're definitely going to have to discuss again before I wouldn't want to put you through it, going through everything, until we've actually discussed it and seen where we're at. So, did you have anything, Steve?
Could you leave us your contact information? If you
Yeah,
have a
definitely, I
card you
have all
leave
that,
me?
so.
Okay.
that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, and that's it for, all right, next item is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda is the payment approval report in the amount of $426,184.55, as well as the March 6, 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Abstain, and motion carries. All right, and the next item is the financial update from Mr. Green. You must be favored here, David, because, we're moving you to the front of the line. How's that working?
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know what I'm doing right, but it sounds like I'm living well, huh? So what we got is we got the numbers, and maybe that's what you're really excited about, is just hearing about numbers all the time. I don't know, but just finished February, so we're just down 2 months. Not a whole lot going on right now. A little bit of property taxes are starting to come in. As you know, those are split, and so those that are paying in halves, the first ones came in February, so those will be collected in March. So those are coming in, so that'll be about $280,000. It's about a third, 44% of what was budgeted on the property taxes. Everything else is really as expected. We're at 8% of revenues for the year. 3% of expenditures. Haven't had anything really significant happen in the general fund. That holds up, that statement holds up for both the water fund and the sewer fund as well. Water fund's about 4%. The only thing that we're seeing come through there, and then sewer fund is about 9%. The things we're seeing come through there would be a little bit of capital improvement type stuff that's starting to happen in there. So that's what's driving some of those expenditures. One other note that I'll have that's outside of what's in here is that I wanted to bring up with you is that in the savings account in Chase is getting to be just under $8 million. So the town doesn't really have a formal investment policy, and I know you guys have brought something like that up before, but at this point, Colo Trust rates are coming up and they're now higher than the Chase savings account. Colo Trust is an investment pool that's for the local governments and the towns, special districts, all those to invest in. And so what they do is they manage the investments. It's very liquid. It's the same as a money market account for the most part. It's also backed by the state PDPA. We already have funds in there, but what I'm wanting a little bit of direction on is if you guys want to transfer funds into there. Since there isn't an investment policy, I thought it was something that should be brought up before just transferring money between banks. Certainly when it's within Chase, we do our best to maximize it within Chase, but this is asking if you want to move it into Colo Trust. The return on it's about 0.16%, I think, right now, or 1.6. I think it's 1.6%. So it's coming up a little bit. There was a point where it wasn't very much at all, so.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren, questions, comments?
No questions, comments. My response to that would be, I think that's a great idea, that we should look at that. My inclination would be to wait a couple months and see where we pan out with the CR2 project and whether we need liquid cash or more easily liquid cash.
So that's extremely liquid cash. You
Okay.
can have it out of Colo Trust via ACH within 2 days.
Oh,
You can have it out via wire within a day.
yeah, then I'd be in favor.
And we've already got stuff in there, so we've got all the mechanisms set up to go back and forth, I believe. But we would double check that before moving over, that we had the bank account in Chase set up, because it might still be back under the Wells Fargo because we haven't transferred it from there in a while.
Okay. Trustee Doherty?
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Ott?
Yeah, Jim Warner Savings account, which is next to nothing these days.
Right.
Makes sense to me.
Right. Trustee
Do we
Early?
have a limit of how much we're going to put in there?
What's that?
Is there a limit of how much we can put in?
To my knowledge, there's not a limit as to what can go into there.
I guess this is what the board feel comfortable with.
Well, so
We'll let that up to you.
So the real difference is those are collateralized, without getting too specific. The state banking overlooks those and they make sure that they're safe, but there is some risk to it. I think it's very, very minimal from what I understand, but I think there is some. Nothing has no risk, right? But the bank account is secured by PDPA, which is the Public Deposit Protection Act, and they go a little bit further as to securing it in a bank account. So I would say it's minimal either way you go, but I can't tell you zero.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Early?
I think it's a good idea, but I don't think we should make a decision tonight. I think we need to bring it back.
All right. Trustee Strock?
Yeah, I've brought this up before. I'm kind of in favor of that. You know, it's money is just sitting there that could be earning some money.
Well, it is earning a little bit in the savings account in Chase.
But this
It would
be
earn a little
more.
bit, would earn a little bit more. This hasn't really been a discussion before because of the smaller amounts of money the town has had, as well as Colo Trust had been not performing as well as it has been in the last, I don't know,
Okay.
6 months or so.
Could I ask you something else, and Steve might help? I've noticed the Silver Peak Supply on the first page. What's that?
That is part of the permits. That's a fee that's charged, I believe, directly for water in Silver Peaks.
So that's for water supply or just
Water.
future water?
Yeah, so we see revenues come in the water fund. So if we,
So with each Silver Peaks water certificate, we collect $1,000 that goes along with that certificate.
Okay. And that's this amount here? It's been
Yes.
building up? All right.
Which page are you looking at? But that's
The very first page,
of the,
line item 61.
yeah, so that's a Chase bank account is what that is. That's been building up over the years and years and years. Because it's taking, if we look at page number 18, there's a line item there, account 50-310-1505. It's called Silver Peaks Water Supply Fee. And that represents the fee that Steve just mentioned, where we collect on every permit. So we're tracking that, moving it to its dedicated cash balance so that when it comes time to need that money, we have it segregated.
Okay, thank you. One other thing, so when we waive fees, what does that do to you accounting-wise? Does it do anything, or is it just magic?
Well, so the fees are entered in when they're collected. So So it really doesn't do anything from an accounting standpoint because the fee wasn't collected, so I'm guessing what happens on the building permit side that it's put in is about a 0, and then it's all handled there.
Okay.
That's about all I can tell you. It's not like I have to do anything to make it go away.
All right, thank you.
All right. Trustee Morris.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate having other investment options brought forward. I think it would be beneficial to have some sort of comparison between the Chase side versus any of the Colorado Trust or anything else in terms of interest rate and fees and other sort of things that go along with that. If that would be possible to do a little bit more comparison and analysis and then have a further discussion.
Yeah, so there's no fees on either of them, but I'll get those exact percentages. They obviously fluctuate over time, so I'll pick a point in time on both of them.
Okay, so overall, we're in favor of it. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait?
I'd say put it on the next agenda.
Okay,
Will do.
an agreement?
Comparisons, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Go ahead and run. I'm only saying that because I'm jealous. All right. Next item is Resolution 2018-4. Now, do you want to introduce, or?
So this is a public hearing for a special use permit for the drilling of 15 horizontal oil and gas wells. And my understanding is that the applicant is here to present. And then Matt Sura is here on behalf of the town to explain the permit negotiations that have been ongoing between the applicant and the town. That we've been taking up with the applicant. And it is a public hearing, though, so you can go ahead if you want to have a public hearing at this point and let the applicant be the first one to provide you with some testimony.
All right, and we will now move from a regular meeting into a public hearing at 7:17. And the floor is yours. Take some testimony.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. My name is Jason Oates. I'm the Director of External Affairs for Crestone Peak Resources. We're here to present on the SAM well pad and then answer any questions. Just want to quickly go over the agenda. We'll go over the project kind of from a map overview, go through a development area, highlighting some of the setbacks from nearby building units, talk about the proposed access route, the timeline, some mitigation measures that we will employ to help minimize impacts, some of the planned outreach, and a quick financial impacts analysis that we did on this location just to give you some understanding of the benefits as well that comes with this project, and then open it up to any comments or questions. Here's a quick layout of where the project location is. It's hard to see on the, you can see the, to the north edge of the Lock Buoy municipal boundary between 85 and 76 there. I'll zoom in on the next slide into that project area right there. So here's, you see the disturbance areas, as we call them, that we will be using to develop this project. The wells and the drilling pad highlighted in the green square, the production facilities in the two maroon squares, and the orange square to the north is the temporary completions area. In the phases of operations, most of the activity will first begin in that southern area where we're drilling the wells. Those actually will be sound walls in that perimeter boundary there. There will be some construction activity going on for the production facility simultaneously with that development of those wells. And then once we move off of that on into the completions, there will be, the completions equipment will be put on the northern pad where that orange boundary is. So you'll have operations at different times in all three different locations during this project. The yellow areas help to signify the distances I called out there in the table. So just to help understand that from a proposed well, the closest building unit, and a building unit is defined by the COGCC as basically what we would consider a home. There are several outbuildings that are also in this area. That's what's signified in the middle column with the building, and then obviously public road is self-explanatory. So from the proposed well, the southwest It's 1,142 feet to the nearest building unit from the edge of the pad. When the facility equipment is in place and we're actually operating and producing these wells, it's 957 feet to the northwest, completion pad 870 to the west, and the edge of disturbance is 780 to the west. So just to give you an understanding of what those setbacks look like. And all of those residents are actually in unincorporated Welch County. The proposed access route is outlined here with the Lock Buoy town limits there in pink, showing ingress and egress into this location, trying to get back to Highway 85 and using those east-west corridors there. Our proposed timeline, if we get approval here rather quickly, is to start construction within the next few weeks. That construction will take approximately 90 days and be prepared with the installation of the mitigation equipment. And that would prepare it to receive the drilling rig, which would move in sometime in the beginning of July. The drilling of these 15 wells takes approximately 90 days, and then the completion's another 60, and beginning in October, with a brief period of flowback which is, there really is no more equipment on site outside of some trucks, worker pickup trucks, and some other equipment required. But the drilling rig and the fracking equipment have left by that point, and then we go into the production phase, which, as you can see there, would start at the beginning of 19 and carry on for many years after that. So our approach to mitigation is really the key to how we operate in these areas. And it starts with our philosophy and operational philosophy and our mindset of our employees. That gets driven in every day, starting, number one, with safety, and then also just being a good neighbor and trying to make sure we're always looking for ways that we can do better and how we can minimize those impacts. We've demonstrated that in places where we've operated. And what I've highlighted here are several of the things we're doing in these types of operations. The picture there to the very top corner shows an operation we had in and around the town of Erie, Colorado, and the walls and equipment being employed at a distance very similar, probably a little bit, even actually less than where we're doing here. And so we were able to do that without any exceedances of any of the COGCC rules related to noise and other issues. You can see there we have the drilling rig closer to that bottom with the 40-foot sound walls, and right above that is the monitoring equipment we use to make sure that our equipment is adjusted and set so that when we're monitoring for noise, we're getting the best performance from our equipment and the mitigations as possible. We do use a drilling mud that we call it an oil-based mud, and there is a odor that comes from that fluid, and we do mitigate that with a neutralizer and other mitigation equipment that we use on site. And we've been testing that with some consultants and have done patrols around our areas and in the neighborhoods at which we operate, and are not able to detect the smell or any sort of smell coming off of that equipment. So we feel like we have a pretty good handle on that product moving forward. And then finally there to the bottom is truck traffic. One of our biggest mitigations, which we're working towards, is a pipeline to take the produced oil away from this location. That wasn't in our initial proposal, but there's been some discussions and some advancements with that pipeline, and we're still continuing down that route. We're not able to commit to that fully today, but are actively working that and feel like we have a pretty good line of sight and assurance that we'll be able to get there hopefully by the time this project moves forward and is in that production phase at the end of this year. Some of the outreach we've had, we posted this notice for this meeting back on February the 7th, and we are committed to communicating the milestones you see there, construction, drilling, and completions with homeowners or surface owners within a half mile of this, just to keep them aware and make sure there's really no surprises. And obviously echoing that with town staff so that they're aware of what we're doing as well. And finally, the piece I think that I like to share the most is some of the benefits the town will see and through the impacts. We had a company called THK and Associates out of Aurora, a third party, non-affiliated with Crestone. We hired them to look at the different tax districts and all the different sources of revenue. They balanced that with the property and the assessments that'll go on with the equipment that's on site. And they came up with these estimates, and based off the ad valorem coming off the production, an average per year of revenue to the different mill districts of 1.3 million with a 33 million lifetime impact to the positive for those districts listed there. And I believe you do have the full copy of the assessment done and a lot of the methodology. I would also encourage you to reach out to THK with questions if you have around how they did some of their analysis in the effort to try to remain somewhat arm's distance from Crestone itself. With that, I'll take any comments or questions you may have.
Well,
I think that the next thing on the agenda before comments, questions, we can discuss is having Mr. Sura explain where we are, the permit that's before the time for approval.
yeah, and we'll hold questions till.
To the public, if there's any public that wants to testify.
Yeah. So if we have more questions, we'll have you sit back up. But thank you. Mr. Sura?
I've got a brief presentation, PowerPoint that's being pulled up.
We're having technical difficulties.
That looks like the one.
Can you pull that more quieter?
So my name is Matt Sura. I'm special counsel to the town of Lochbuie. I've been working with Crestone Peak Resources and specifically their counsel, Jill Durancy, and made a lot of progress over the last couple weeks. There's still more to be done. You know, there's still some things that are moving, and we're going to talk about those during this presentation. But for the most part, they've done an excellent job in providing most of the mitigations that town of Lochbuie or any town in the state of Colorado would like to see for their constituents. So, again, the Front Range is no stranger to oil and gas development. Every one of these red dots is at least one oil and gas well. There are over 30,000 on the Front Range alone, around 54,000 active wells in the state of Colorado. And the town of Lochbuie is completely surrounded on all sides by oil and gas development. What you see here are the horizontal wells that are being developed in and around Lochbuie. The ones that are in purple are the ones that have already been drilled. The ones that are in green have already been permitted by the state, the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and the light blue are being proposed. The southernmost part of Weld County and northernmost part of Adams County is really the target of a lot of oil and gas development right now. And Lochbuie is in the middle of that. So getting a little bit closer to the sand pad, this is the town of Lochbuie. Most has not been drilled, but there has been some development in the periphery of Lochbuie. And you can see there the circle indicates where the sand pad is. Crestone Peak Resources has already received their permits from the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, but still need to get local permits. Again, this is getting closer. Right now, the closest home, as was already mentioned, is approximately 700, 800 feet away from this location. Oil and gas development is highly industrialized activity that, is primarily regulated by the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. This is a typical oil and gas facility. This is near Berthoud. This is was an extraction site, now is Crestone Peak Resources. But you can see that there are certainly a number of tanks. There's emission control units, there are separators. All of those are located in one place, and that actually is really good for the environment. That's what you want to see, because if every one of those were taking up an acre or to 3 acres, there wouldn't be much location for the rest of us to live. Consolidating those facilities is the best operating, the best management practice, but you also want to make very, very particular as to where those locations are, because that is a very industrial facility. And there are certainly environmental and community impacts of oil and gas development. The primary ones have already been mentioned by Crestone Peak Resources and are dealt with, I believe, by the conditions of this permit. First and foremost, we want to talk about water quality protections, noise mitigations, and visual impacts and transportation issues. Water quality being first and foremost because of the status of your water supply. Being so reliant on a shallow aquifer, spills have got to be a concern. And there are a lot of spills in the oil and gas industry. Most of them are very small, but they are reported. And there are an average of 2 spills per day reported in the state of Colorado. And as you can see from this picture, those spills can mean different things in different places. If it's in a contained area where there's a berm, that isn't going to cause a concern, particularly if it's also underlaid with some sort of liner. And then the second picture, you can see there wasn't a berm, and that spill took off. The water quality protections that are in this permit, and I've cited these here, and I can go into as much detail as you like, but for the purposes of this, I thought it would be easier to talk about interests and how this permit deals with those interests. First and foremost, all pits are prohibited. Pits leak, ultimately, and if it's a waste pit, even if it's a produced water pit, it's not a flowback pit. Those aren't things that we want to see within the city limits. They're, for the most part, prohibited by state air quality regulations, but it's not something that we're going to have any of here in Lac Bowie and this facility. Injection wells, they've agreed not to have any injection wells. Any waste is going to be carted off-site and not dealt with on-site at all. Increased spill monitoring and reporting beyond what the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission requires. They're actually committing to doing monitoring for spills every week, at least once a week. Steel containment berms with a synthetic layer. Again, that's the best management practice that Crestone Peak Resources has done statewide, but it is not required by the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And it is something that is in this permit. They're not going to have any long-term chemical storage on site, and they've also agreed to not use certain chemicals that have been proven to be dangerous or toxic, particularly around water quality. It goes on. They're agreeing to enhanced water monitoring regulations through the 609 regulations. Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission has regulations for most of the state except this area that you have to do baseline monitoring of at least 4 locations within a quarter mile of the proposed facility. And that is baseline to make sure that you're checking for any of the hydrocarbons that might be associated with oil and gas. You get that baseline, and then you allow for the oil and gas development to occur. And they are committed, again, through state regulations, everywhere but this area, to, again, check those 4 locations for any changes 5 to 6 months after the oil and gas development has occurred, and then 5 to 6 years after the oil and gas development has occurred. So you've got a good baseline, and you get to track if there's been any contamination whatsoever of that groundwater. And they have committed to those higher standards for this area, even though they're not required by state law. They've gone beyond that and said that they'd even drill a monitoring well for that shallow aquifer to specifically target just directly downslope from the well. So we're going to have really good information as to if anything happens. We're going to know about it very quickly, and something, you know, we can take care of it. There's going to be no use of untreated water, and they're also had committed in spirit to a pipeline rather than oil tanks. And that's also a best management practice, because an oil pipeline is not something that typically leaks. It's more easily monitored with a pigging system, and honestly, the tanks ultimately can be a source of some contamination if they're leaking from underneath. Noise. Hydraulic fracturing is extremely loud. It's dangerously loud if you are not wearing ear protection near it, because all of those engines are all working simultaneously to push hydraulic fracking fluid, you know, to pressurize that hydraulic fracking fluid and push it downhole to fracture the oil and gas formation. It's really loud, and so they do have good sound walls and mitigations to ensure that residents and any residents nearby, whether they're in Lac Bowie or outside, will not be having to deal with that noise at a nuisance level. Again, here's some sound walls. But even after they do the oil and gas development, there are certain equipment that can be left on site that can also be a source of noise for the next 30 years. So a compressor engine, compressors compress the gas to put it into the pipeline. Those can be really noisy, and they've agreed not to have any transmission compressor engines on site. Noise regulations at the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission allow for that industrial level of noise during their drilling and hydraulic fracturing operations. That can be as much as 80 decibels, which is loud. Again, you know, that if you're living in your home and you didn't think that it was an industrial area, that can be really difficult. They've agreed to limit those 5 decibels from those industrial levels, which will give some comfort, given that this is the scale of the decibels. The way that works is that's probably around a 40% reduction. It's significant. So they've got no gas transmission compression allowed on site. The A-scale noise must be decreased by 5 decibels from COGC regulations. They've agreed to a C-scale, a low-frequency limit, which isn't in the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. That's that base level that sometimes you can feel because it's almost a vibration. Those are some of the harder noise levels to control, and they've agreed to 65 decibels there, and they're going to use, they've announced their intention to use electric equipment if it's possible. Visual impacts. Storage tanks are not very visually appealing. That certainly is an impact. And what they proposed is you know, a large industrial development. You've got in this picture, the well sites are to the right there of the picture. Those are where the wellheads are going to be. And then you're going to have the separators and some of the emission control equipment, and then the tanks are off to the left. And there are a lot of tanks. There's over 30 tanks that are being proposed. But they've agreed to elimination of pits and compressors on site, as I mentioned. They're not going to have storage of any equipment. They have agreed to coordinate landscaping with Altamira subdivision and plant as many as 30 trees. And they've committed their intention to use a pipeline rather than storage tanks, which would not eliminate all the tanks on site, but it would certainly reduce it to a handful rather than over 30. and they've agreed to reduce light pollution. Transportation issues. Certainly there are a lot of trucks associated with oil and gas development. What they've put forward is that peak traffic might be 70 semis during the day, per day during construction. This is peak. 36 semis during drilling, 76 per day during completion, 80 semis per day during the peak production, which is at the very first months of production if they're hauling it by tanker trucks. And then that would dwindle down to as little as many as 12 semis per day during the second year, and it goes down even from there. Under transportation, the conditions of the permit, they've got a $100,000 bond for road repairs. They have agreed to pipe water for completion rather than using trucks, which is going to reduce a lot of that truck traffic during the fracking phase or the hydraulic fracturing phase or completion phase. They're going to use dust suppression on the haul route. They're agreed to, they've announced their intention to use an oil pipeline rather than oil tankers. They're going to eliminate almost entirely truck traffic going through Lac Bowie because of the road route that they've chosen. And that was something that they worked hard with. The town of Lac Bowie met with them several times, talked to the engineers, and did come up with a route that would more or less leave the interior of Lac Bowie alone. And there's also in this, in the condition of a permit, payment of a public road impact fee to the town of Lac Bowie if necessary during the production phase. And I'm open for questions as well.
Okay, actually, we'll hold off on questions at this time.
Sounds good.
Do we have any more testimony?
Good evening. My name is Jill Durancy. I'm with Just Energy Law. We represent Crestone on regulatory matters and matters before the local government. I just wanted to clarify a few issues that Mr. Sura has presented, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. First, I did want to specifically state that the site that he indicated in his PowerPoint was not a Crestone site, and I just wanted to make that clear. We're not sure whether or not it is an extraction site, but our sites don't look like that, and we don't take extraction sites, so I just wanted to clarify. Second, with respect to the compression engines, the picture that he also indicated was not what was indicated in the special permit, the conditions of permit that's been presented to you. What was identified in the agreement is that there would be 6 to 8 small engine units, and those are no taller than 4 feet, and they would also be surrounded by sound walls. But the reason that I wanted to also come to you is because I wanted to specifically identify that there were 2 issues that were actually remaining in our negotiations with Mr. Sura that I think are important for you to discuss before accepting the special permit as presented by Mr. Sura. First, with respect to paragraph 10, that's the noise mitigation measures. In his proposed permit, in the final paragraph, he indicates that during all phases of operations, low-frequency noise levels will not exceed 65 decibels as measured from the nearest building unit. We're submitting to you that to make it clearer and to clearly identify what's within your jurisdiction, that you indicate that it should be the nearest Lac Bowie building unit. As indicated by Mr. Sura as well as by Mr. Oates, the site will be on a border, and it will be close to other properties that are outside of Lac Bowie, that are in the unincorporated Weld County, but because that's outside of your jurisdiction, I would submit to you that it would be more appropriate to indicate and specify that Lac Bowie should be included in this specific paragraph. The second and final issue that we were unable to resolve with Mr. Sura is in paragraph 25D. Now, Mr. Sura did indicate that in his presentation that there would be a road impact fee. We went back and forth significantly on this issue. Paragraph D, or subsection D rather, indicates that the operator shall provide an accurate vehicle traffic estimate. In addition to that, Mr. Sura proposes that if necessary, Loch Buoy may assess costs towards the maintenance of the roads during production. As you see in paragraph subsection B of 25, Crestone has already agreed to repair any roads as soon as possible. They've already, as indicated by Mr. Sura, and as required in the special permit, has agreed to pay a bond specifically for the purposes of road repair. All of those in combination with the ad valorem taxes that was presented by Mr. Oates of approximately $350,000 per year, we would submit to you that the additional possible fees that may be assessed to Crestone by the town is unnecessary. Crestone has agreed to make any repairs, and we would submit to you at this time that the way that this is drafted at this point appears that it may result in arbitrary costs, as we have no idea what it would be relied on, and we would have no idea how we would be able to discuss that with you in order to make a final decision on what those costs would be. But we believe that that would be excessive, and we're asking that at this point you strike that last sentence in subsection D from this paragraph. But we are in agreement with the remainder of the terms of the conditions of permit, and we would ask that at this time that you deliberate and grant the request from Crestone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more testimony? Anyone else who wants to speak? Okay. Not hearing any. Would Mr. Lofgren?
Yeah, at this point, I would make a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, parens 4, parens B, for legal advice with our oil and gas counsel to answer legal questions regarding this special use permit application.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Doherty?
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Strong?
Yes.
Trustee Early?
Yes.
Trustee Ott?
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren?
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney?
Yes, and motion carries. Okay. All right. It is now, what time is it right now? It is March 20, 2018. The time is now 7:48, and for the record, I am, I'm Mayor Michael Mahoney, as required by the Open Meetings Law. This executive session is being electronically recorded. Also present at the following, are the following persons. Trustee, go ahead. I guess so. You want to move it? I forget we're not moving, we move now. I'm so used to the old building. I was going to kick you guys out.
The burden of leadership.
Yeah, no, the burden of wanting to leave at actually 7:30. It didn't happen.
A couple minutes late, huh?
Yeah. I forget we have to leave, they don't leave. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Waiting on Steve. He's just wondering if it. Mike, can you do me a favor and grab Steve there? I just see him go around the corner. There's, he's coming in here. Oh, there he is. Never mind. Mike. He's right here. Okay, you ready? Okay, the time is now 8:25 PM and the executive session has been concluded. For the record, if any person who participated believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into an executive session occurred, or that any improper action occurred in violation of the open meeting law, I ask that you state your concerns for the record. And seeing none, we will return to the regular meeting and the public hearing. And I just want to put this out there. We had quite a bit of discussion over this, and it's kind of a consensus with the whole board. I know you guys are in a hurry to get this thing going, but many of us received the paperwork last night, and then the other part today. And we're just reading through it, and none of us feel comfortable making a decision right this minute. I don't think it's prudent for us to do that, and much of the board is in agreement, well, pretty much all the board is in agreement that we don't want to make this discussion, or this decision right this minute. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to allow anyone else have anything to say, any of the board members. Trustee Ott?
Well, we recommended a couple of changes, but I guess we're going to address those in 2 weeks.
All right. Trustee Doherty?
Yeah, so, I guess a couple of thoughts that I had kind of just in the time that we had to review. So you had shown a map of kind of access routes that you guys had. I don't know if we're able to pull that back up. But one of them was on County Road 33. And my concern with that is it's right next to a residence, or a residential area. And I'd like to somehow include that. I think that's a fine route for things that aren't things like benzene and other things that have, that can cause issues to people that live in those houses. So if it's just, normal traffic, if it's oil tankers or whatever, I think that's fine, but if it's a caustic material, I'd like to make sure that we have a provision that requires you guys to take a route that doesn't go through neighborhoods, essentially. And then the next thing is for County Road 4, one of the things that we had talked, it was brought up about the 350,000. In my understanding, that's kind of more of a property tax. I don't really consider that being, I guess, an impact on roads. And I think we would prefer to, or at least I would prefer to see the provision regarding, I guess it was 25D remain, unless we're able to kind of come to an agreement on the pipeline itself. There is a significant impact that trucks have on especially asphalt roads, which is what that road is. I know there is a clause of damage to that road and so forth. But I think we need something additional, especially for kind of the longer term after you guys have, I guess, kind of cycled down on production and even right after you guys are through drilling and so forth.
How would we just understanding, so would we want to quantify that too, based off of what's attributed to oil and gas traffic and what's attributed to other development, other traffic on that route?
That's fair.
And that's kind of what we were trying to do with B, but that's the direction we're trying to go is surveying that, you know, our activity and our impacts to roads are usually in that drilling and completion phase. The production phase is, especially with the pipeline, like you stated, is almost minimal.
Yeah, I guess that was my big thought, is if the pipeline doesn't go in, especially the first year from the numbers that were shown, there's a lot of trucks that go on there. I just want to make sure that the town's covered regarding that.
And just for clarification, what, on that road, on that route, which ones are town-maintained roads? Is it that, because it's really only the part that borders your town boundaries, or?
County report is a little unclear on your hotline if you're using on the east side of the section line or the west side of the section line, where you're right north and block road.
Okay.
So I think we need to clarify that. That was kind of the addition, I think, on that road.
Yeah, we've changed the route several times at discretion, so, of the staff, so we just wanted to make sure. We have multiple options available. You know, we just want to make what's most amenable to the town work. Obviously, trying to find the best solution there is.
Yeah, I don't know if you were only these 4 and then go up to 6 and then have, or if you're in the time period that 22 and 33.
Maybe that's something we should talk about over the next week.
And then the other thing too, was information, I guess the provision, let me get back there, sorry. That was asked for adding lock buoy building units. I think that was in paragraph 10. My concern with that is you guys are clearly in town limits, basically right on the perimeter of town limits. And I think we still, as a town, still need to be good stewards of neighbors. And if I think we had it just covered lock buoy residents, the residents that are closest wouldn't be covered by that. And honestly, I think that would kind of show bad for the town that we didn't kind of take our neighbors into account when, since it's being done on town, in the excuse me, in the limits of the town of Loch Buoy, they didn't really get a say. They didn't have a voice. So I'd prefer to not limit it to just Loch Buoy residents or building units, just because of that.
Okay. Understand though that they are covered by state law and state rules, and we obviously have a track record of being able to meet even what you're prescribing here.
Absolutely.
360 degrees, so it's not like we'll direct it that way or do something different, and so they will get the benefit, and I think we can live with that, striking lock buoy building units from that paragraph.
Okay. Let me just take a look at my notes. I lost them somewhere. That's why I shouldn't just do it on a random page. So on the back of this, hey, there it is. And I think those were the 3 main items. And I definitely appreciate kind of allowing us to kind of continue this to the next board meeting. We did just kind of get this, and me personally, I like to be able to kind of process all the information and just have a chance to kind of read through that, so I definitely appreciate that.
Do we have your commitment on that meeting, though? We'll have an up or down vote, one way or the other?
I'm not going to give you
I mean, we've been at this for a long time, and I think
we are amenable to
sure.
it. We do want to see this go through. We do want to see this happen, but we do also have a responsibility to the people that elected us in this town. So, you know, we're going to do what we have to do to protect them and still allow you guys to do, you know, trust me, all of us are pretty much on board with this,
yes,
just
sir.
the few little items. Okay. And again, most of us got this 6 o'clock last night, and we're still processing, and then we get yours today, and we're, yeah.
Understood.
But anything else?
That's all that I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of Trustee Doherty's comments. It sounds like you're going to work with staff on looking at the routes and making sure they all make sense, but I had huge concerns about County Road 33 as well. It runs right along a subdivision, and it's not improved at all, it's just a dirt road.
Okay.
So the idea that potentially caustic chemicals and semis might be running down that road is very concerning to me. I am not inclined to strike anything from paragraph 10. I am not inclined to strike anything from 25D. 25D, I would at least be more open to striking language if we had a firm commitment on an oil pipeline. Unless we have that firm commitment, I think the road impact fee should stay. Can you give me
I guess, could we have a definition of what that's going to be? Because there's not an amount or way that's going to be assessed or anything that we can really make a good decision on from a business standpoint, and that's really.
I think we had the same question too, which is part of the reason we wanted to put this out 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm hoping you can work with our staff and with Mr. Sura and maybe nail down what that might look like. And I'm kind of a visual person, and I'm having a hard time picturing, when you describe the sound walls, how high are we talking about? What do they look like? Does it look like the one on Silver Peaks there, right by Silver Peaks there?
Pretty close. It's 40 feet, so it'd be 5 panels. They're eight wide or 8 tall.
Right.
So it'd be 5 panels high, so it'd be 40 feet. The main thing you're trying to do with noise is create a line of sight difference, so that's what really, from an A-scale perspective, that's what stops A-scale noise.
Okay.
So the higher you go, the further off you mitigate from that. C-scale is really the temporary sound walls we put closer to the equipment. So we go through a full mitigation plan and really have perfected this down to a science on how we mitigate the noise, and have done a really good job of achieving results. I think that, you know, I know that Mr. Sura talked about how the hydraulic fracturing is very loud. We actually use the Liberty Quiet Fleet as one of the mitigations, which you can have a conversation standing next to it without hearing protection. They're a publicly traded company. You can go look them up now and get more information on them. But there's a lot of things we do related to noise, because we know that's a key piece of this suburban corridor and how we operate. So.
And how about the light off of, especially the derrick?
Right. So we've done some really special things. Our VP of Operations is here, and he can speak to it a little bit more if you'd like. But basically, we've taken lights, we've taken the shields down, taken them to auto body places and had them tinted. We've done a lot of things to try to direct it only at the places where it's light, or where the light is needed. One of the biggest things is the feedback we get from when we first set up. Is if we get feedback from the town and they can take a picture, or a neighbor, hey, there's a light, because it could be coming between the walls or some. If you could take a picture, we can adjust off of those types of things. That's the feedback, and I think the interaction we want to have with the folks around, that we are trying to address all their issues. And that's usually in that first week or two when we first arrive, because it is new and there are things we may have not tuned in correctly that we want to make sure we get on as quickly as possible.
Okay, that's great to hear. Yeah, the last note I had was just, man, I would feel so much more comfortable about this if we had a firmer commitment on the oil pipeline. So
I would too.
I mean, I would. 2 weeks,
yeah, no, I appreciate that, and believe me, this was not something, obviously, by what we submitted wasn't realistic several months ago, and it's really come full circle and become commercial for us to really be down this road, and we're making progress. We're not there yet, and maybe, like you said, this 2 weeks will help. You have our commitment. We want to put the pipeline in. We you know, it serves our business needs as well, from multiple mitigating risk and other things. So we're open to and pursuing that very aggressively.
Yeah, I think that's all the comments I have for today. I'll save my remaining for next meeting.
Trustee Morris?
Most of my concerns have been asked and addressed so far. A question from paragraph 6 about spills. You're monitoring for that minimum weekly and then maximum daily by visual inspection. Is it possible to do some kind of remote sensing or a little bit more real-time indication of if
we do have remote sensory, I mean, that's how we have remote control. We have the ability to shut in all wells remotely. So we have those abilities, some of that's already built into our designs. The AVO is more the audio-visual and olfactory. Those leaks and some of that goes with the operator that comes, like I said, he's going to be out there daily. There's going to be somebody there making sure this equipment's running like it's supposed to be. And we will also, off of that, we'll have the water monitoring, the monitoring wells, which if we're not able to see it on the surface, if there's something happening below grade, we can pick up that fairly quickly as well. So, I mean, we're really trying to apply the A standard here with the concerns brought up by staff and by Mr. Sura around the water table and the town's water supply. We're very sensitive to that as well.
Okay. Quick question. How many wells can you drill at one time?
One.
Okay,
So
one,
it's,
one
the
per
rig is
primary
drilling,
base.
yeah. We'll be doing it, and there's different ways of, but the rig will be drilling the one well at a time.
One second. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. All right, trustee Strauch?
After giving you such a hard time last time, I don't know quite what to say. I'm pretty impressed with that you're going to put up a sound wall, I guess for the record, completely around the project. I had to do some research to see, you know, I mean, honestly, I was probably wrong in a lot of ways, thinking that, you know, it was supposed to be a half mile from us rather than 1,000 feet or something. On the sound, I noticed that the decibel readings are taken at about 350 feet away, which will be pretty advantageous to the people that are on the west side and stuff. So,
Just so you're aware, with sound, obviously distance is the biggest mitigation you can have.
yeah.
So if you double distance, you decrease it by 9 decibels. So each time you double it, if you're going down another 9 decibels, it's pretty significant when you get to the distance where we're at.
Yeah, I
with
was
these
kind of
numbers.
amazed to realize that the difference between 70 decibels and 60 decibels, 60 decibels being half as much sound as the
Correct.
70, which, you know, and to some extent doesn't make sense, but it's something to pay attention to. I appreciate that. I think you're working towards those lights. I think that was a great thing too. The monitoring well I thought was good, and I'd also like to say that as you finished up on state land, it honestly looks like you've never even been there.
Well, I appreciate that.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And trustee Early?
I concur with most of what's been going on. The only thing I wanted to add was, I believe when you said you were done with the site, you're going to do a buffer on the Altamira side, trees or something.
We're going to work with the developer on that and how they want to work. Our surface landman is here. If you want to speak to that, Bob, real quick.
I just wanted to add, nice if you did something on the west side also, because we like to be good neighbors, and those people may eventually annex into town at some time.
Sure, I'm sure that's something we can work out as a way to, I think there are some mitigations in the site plan that show some of the trees being on that west side. Obviously, we don't want it to look too odd with it
Yeah.
just being on 3 sides.
I just
think
thought
we
it would
did-
be a good thing to
Yes,
do
ma'am.
also.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Did you have anything, Steve, Maureen? Nothing? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Oh, actually, one second.
Yeah, I did have one more quick thing. Can we get some kind of, I don't want to say promise or guarantee from our staff and from you guys that whatever changes get made in the next 2 weeks, we'll see them before 6 PM the night before? I mean, yeah. I mean, what I want to avoid is the problem that I'm finding is, are we going to show up again next time and everybody will be like, whoa.
Well, I mean, I think that would be the difference on the close there on the negotiations, where we are Friday morning before. Because normally it's about the board packet before, and then I think
We'll be in touch, you know, maybe this week and next, and we're gonna have a conversation up before.
So just so I'm clear, the key points are paragraph D with the impact fee, if necessary, and how we do that. That's tied to the pipeline. It's the lock buoy wording in the building unit for the noise and the route. So if,
West side landscape is issues raised tonight from the
Agreed.
And if we get feedback from you after reviewing it a little bit further, if we could get that as quickly as possible through
Most definitely.
council and staff, that'd be great.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Sorry, actually, I had a public question about this, which is actually my neighbors and
Let's step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Actually, with Crestone, and I am definitely not anti-fracking if it comes across this way, but my sister lives in Erie and my dad lives in Boulder, which maybe might preempt why some of this is, but actually kind of curious, when we go back to September 28th of 2014, this was actually common with Crestone to submit midnight reports. Boulder County did complain about this and asked it not to happen. When we go to the Boulder County website and look at the reports, it actually occurred on February 13th of the following year, less than 4 months later, another midnight report submitted by Crestone. Also, they had issues with the pipeline, with the Kerr pipeline on the Boulder Erie side of town that they didn't alert Boulder to, that there were issues with, that a contract didn't fall through, and they had to keep their tanks, which one of them did leak, before they were able to connect to the pipeline. So I feel like there's information as residents here that, you know, Crestone isn't being honestly 100% upright with us for. Also, if we look at the Kerr report from the WHO, the sites that they put up do decibel ratings, but it has been found out that the fracking companies like to draw attention away from the part that we fix the decibels, but as you said, and quickly revert, also a low frequency rating on the sea. According to WHO, 52 times the distance beyond what is considered an accessible decibel rating. And these have been known per a WHO report right here to affect extremely under the age of 4-year-olds with a low decibel rating and brain development. I mean, if we look at it, the WHO, you know, isn't either way and has never participated in any kind of politicalness of it. So I think, you know, the World Health Organization's reports and findings kind of hold a little bit of weight. And then also, if we look at the pipeline that was in there, 4 residents were sued for eminent domain without Boulder being informed, and then it had to go into court because they couldn't get the pipeline. So I'd like to know if the pipeline's being built. Is this all property that's already done out? Is it all stuff that Lock Buoy or Hudson or whoever else this is going through is already there? Or do they have to talk to the landowners as well about putting this pipeline in? If the landowners haven't approved from the pipeline, are we, you know, are we going to start getting land taken away from the residents and so forth for what they deem as a fair market? Which if we go into other states such as Texas, there have been multiple lawsuits from fracking on people getting a quarter of the value of what the estimated property was if they were to sold it, you know, to retail space or anything else. So, there's just some concerns there. I think when we go back and we look at the history, you know, with the Boulder Erie stuff based on this, especially, like I said, you know, you having 2 family members, you know, that experienced this, and then being here in the meeting, seeing the midnight reports that you guys just say come through has actually been, I'm sorry, but there's a proven track record on file, you know, with the state of Colorado and Boulder. This is not uncommon for Crestone to submit last-minute reports. So,
Okay.
that's all I
Thank you
have.
very much. Any further rebuttal? Anything?
I'll just state for the record that Crestone wasn't accompanying some of the allegations that he proposed on the dates mentioned. You can get most of that from a media report and read a lot of those things, and I could say we stand by our record. It wasn't us that gave you the report last night at midnight. We'll stand by our actions and not what's a lot that's been contrived in the media in some of these instances, but we can show you data where we have, you know, we meet the state standards and we have a a clean operating record, and we'll bring that to Dacono with the idea of being a good neighbor.
Thank you. Sir, if you want to speak, please step up, but
I thought
please.
that when you come up, so
Please.
the previous company that before Crestone was bigger, that bought out, that was doing the fracking, had 3 complaints in a 4-year process. When they took over here with the Erie, and this is actually in there, they had 500 complaints in residents for noise violations, road violations, and truck violations in less than a year period. There was an internal audit done. Out of those 500, Crestone said that none of them was a valid complaint. They complained to the city of Boulder. Boulder found 283 out of those 500 complaints to be valid.
Okay, thank you. I think we got plenty of information. My brain hurts already.
I just have a question that I'd like to ask, particularly in light of the additional public comment. I'm not exactly sure what the process is, but I'm just wondering, when the public record is closed or the public hearing is closed, does that permit for additional comment at our next hearing? Should we be prepared to have additional presentations done? I'm just not sure what the process is.
The options are two. I mean, we can just continue the public hearing until the next meeting if you feel like you might. It sounds like there may be some additional negotiation on the hearing, and therefore it might be appropriate to actually just continue the public hearing rather than close it, because there may be someone from the public and the applicant that wants to comment on any additional permit requirements that might come forward in the next 2 weeks. So I'm fine with just continuing the public hearing. It'll give, obviously, any people in the public an opportunity to speak too, right? It doesn't go both ways. Or we could close the public hearing because we said that that's it, but then there would be an opportunity for the public to comment on any additional requirements that may come out in the next couple of weeks. And so that's really a decision for the board to make.
Well, I guess I just wanted to indicate, since what was presented to you from Mr. Sura did, I was asking for additional information, or I was asking for things to be stricken from this permit. I'm not sure whether or not it would be necessary to continue it as opposed to closing it. But in light of the comment the gentleman made in the back, I just wanted to clarify whether or not there would be additional public comment permitted at the next public hearing, whether or not it would be noticed or whether or not we could close it today.
There's no need to notice this. We're going to
Okay.
continue this to a date certain, which will be April 3rd at 7 p.m. at the next regular board meeting. And so public notice is kind of flowed through these continuances, and that's fine. We've got the notice requirement to do that. But whether or not we want to actually close the public hearing or not is really important.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will put it to the board. Do you want to continue, or?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing until April 3rd at 7 p.m.
Second.
Take your pick on second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Early?
Yes.
Trustee Strack?
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Gordon?
Yes.
Trustee Ott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lochgren?
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney?
Yes, and motion carries. All right, and we will go back into the regular meeting. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right, the next item is the Fall Festival. You wanna?
So
My brain is scrambled right now.
Okay.
Still trying to figure stuff
I,
out. What were you
so
gonna say?
one idea on our agenda tonight, since we do have our two consulting engineer and consulting water attorney here, should we go to our water executive session so we can?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. We've been here long enough. So, you want to
Yeah, we can do that under-
make the change to the agenda and
Yeah.
move executive
Let's
session?
make
do
a-
it either under trustee or under.
Go ahead.
Fall Festival.
If you want to stay here for executive session, there's nobody from the public that's really remaining. We just want to make sure we're not live streaming during executive session.
We should go to a different one.
Yeah, I think we should go to a different. Okay, I'll make a motion to go into executive, excuse me, executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-4, Parens 4, Parens B, with the Town Water Council for legal advice pursuant to section 24 dash.
Yes.
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 Yes, and motion carries. All right, next item is, or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, adjourn. Let's see, it is March 20th, and the time is now 8:54. For the record, I am Mayor Mike Mahoney, as required by the Open Meetings Law. This executive session is being electronically recorded. Also present are the following persons: Mayor Pro Tem Jacob Lofgren, Trustee Grant Doherty, Trustee Michael Morris, Trustee Marty Early, Trustee Dave Ott, Trustee Larry Strock, Town Administrator Steve Stamey, Town Attorney Maureen Duran, Administrative Assistant Samantha Byrne, Town Water Attorney Steve Jeffers, Chris Sanchez, and Jeff Rabus, and did I get Monica Mendoza? Okay.
It actually turned off like that.
Oh.
Like it says not in session. That's the first time in 3 months.
Okay. And also David B. Beck, Public Works.
Yeah.
This executive session is pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses B, with the Town Water Council for legal advice, and pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses E, for determining position and developing strategy for negotiations and Silver Peaks Water East Water Dedication Agreement. This is I caution each participant to confine all discussion to the stated purpose, and that no formal action may occur in the executive session. If at any point any participant believes that the discussion is going outside the proper scope, please interrupt and discuss and state an objection. The discussion and state objection. Okay, I'm out of breath. Go ahead. It's all yours.
Thank you. Well, we've been working, negotiating a water resource agreement with Silver Peaks East for probably 5 or 6 months, maybe even a little bit longer than that. We've studied some water rights that they proposed for dedication. We've submitted 2 drafts of a water agreement to them and gone round and round on that a few times. And I wanted to talk to you about the concepts that we're employing in this agreement. I mentioned them to you a little bit before, but I want to see if you are supportive of these concepts or not, and also to talk about the details of our last round of comments from Harvey Deutsch on behalf of the owners of Silver Peak East. They're dedicating or proposing to dedicate water rights in the Fulton Ditch and the Burlington-Wellington systems over by Brighton, which Chris and I feel are, in general, are good water rights, would be a good addition to the town's supply. There are complicating factors in terms of how that water needs to be delivered. That sort of affects the concepts of the deal. So these water rights, because they're on these particular ditches, they have to be diverted through those ditches first, and then they have to be returned to the river somewhere on the ditch. On the Fulton, there is 3 sections of the ditch, and typically if your water's in one section, you're supposed to take it all the way down there and then return it. Some people, other utilities, other cities own these water rights, and they can get temporary approval from the company, ditch company, to run them through, say, the very first section. But for us to do this for Lac Bowie, you're going to have to obtain rights to use an existing structure. And we've been talking to South Adams County and to Central, who own structures, about Lac Bowie's interest in acquiring permanent rights to those facilities so you can do this and know that you can do it forever or as long-term as we can make it. And we have no agreement to do that yet. They haven't said no, but they haven't said yes, and they haven't said what the terms would be if they would do it. There's also an outlet structure, Aug Station down that Fort Lupton owns. They won't even return my calls. I don't know if that's just because they're busy or what. But we don't know the cost of those structures or the cost to buy into those structures. We also have, we have ways of trying to estimate that, and I've done that, and I've put numbers in the agreement. And the other part he's asked us, the owners had asked us to explain the basis of that, which is fair. But we also have the need for storage, and at this point, we think we're pretty comfortable with the amount of storage that we think would be required. And again, there's no contract with storage in the future, and they're willing to talk to us about maybe participating in that. And people are willing to lease use storage on an interim basis. And there is one party, Central is willing to possibly do a trade, maybe trade some water rights in return for actually not even having to use their augmentation station.
Your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next agenda item is the Fall Festival. Well, we like having Jeff hang out.
So, Jeff likes our meetings.
Oh, he was watching TV. There's a good show on out there in the foyer there.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
Thanks.
so I think in general, I mean, Fall Festival and other events that may come up, I think for kind of management of
Funds.
from the town side and expenses and paying this and paying that, I think it'd be in our best interest to maybe enter into like a professional services agreement or an agreement with Lac Boux Exchange, just say for the Fall Festival, here's this agreement, to put on the festival. Town costs may be identified, payment of A, B, and C. So we know, when a bill comes in or what we're doing and what we're paying for and what our obligation is. And then also if the Easter egg festival or weekend is cost to have something like that, of what our obligation is going to be to pay. I just think that would make me a lot more comfortable in,
Us as
authorizing
well.
payment and understanding what we're paying, and the
Yeah.
board understands what we're paying, and so I think I would like to pursue that type of agreement for those events.
Yeah. Anyone, questions, comments? Yes, I'm
Because
amenable.
we have a $15,000 budget line item, I
Yes.
think, and so I don't think staff understands that 10,000 of that's supposed to go towards the Easter egg thing and 5 to the Fall Festival, or how the board wanted that money to be divvied up amongst the events.
How to delineate that and earmark what funds for what. I think that's, yeah, because that was the other thing I was going to bring up, because we're already starting in on the fundraising as well. We're going to, developers, stuff like that, to donate to the city. And many of them do, as you know, Steve, we've done that over the years, and that's what we're beginning now. And that funding is going to be going in there, and I think we need to have that, that
Right, we
delineation,
do.
so we know what funds are what. So, do you have any recommendations?
No, I just want, both board and staff and everybody understands what, what's being funded and paid for, and how that arrangement is formalized.
Well, I'm open to consideration. I mean, I don't want to delve into it too much, because I am on the other side of it, so I want to kind of put this out there to the board.
Someone go.
Yeah, questions, comments?
I guess my first question would be, is the town funding the Easter thing? Is that the plan, and what kind of cost are we looking at for that?
Actually, yeah, we've fronted the money for it, and we're actually purchasing the eggs, everything else, all that, and we're looking at probably around $400, $500 total cost on that for eggs and gift baskets, all that stuff. So, yeah, we're in that neighborhood.
Okay, I mean, I guess my preference would have been that request came before the event was planned. Not that I have a problem with it, I think I would have voted yes on it, but I'm concerned that the event was planned and then it was assumed the town was gonna fund it. And I guess if we were looking at the Fall Fest number, I definitely agree we need a professional services agreement. I'm 100% on board with that. And if we were to place a number on Fall Fest, I guess my inclination would be to say no more than 10, if our full budget's only 15. Might be one who has thoughts.
Well, I'm not sure if this is in the same purvey, but we've got the first Friday coming up too, April 6th, which is gonna be out here, which is the southeast well. It used to be, it's basically a get-together of all the businesses and people in the southeast well, the network and everything else. And that's gonna be here, and we're on, they expect us to pay for that. But I haven't gotten an estimate from Sweet Penelope's yet on what that's gonna be. And normally there's 35 to 50 people that show up. But the other second thing is there that, and Steve and I discussed this, is the board has a restriction on alcohol in this building.
So, okay.
And normally they provide beer and wine, you know, to the people who are here, no cost to them, so I don't think we would need a liquor permit or license or anything, because we're not charging for it.
Well,
But
that doesn't matter if, it doesn't matter if you charge you to give away a new liquor license, but if it's a private event, you invite only, not the public,
yeah, it's invite only. for
then
yourself.
you don't need a liquor license, just like if you have a party at your house.
Okay. But then we have the board decide that no liquor would be served here, so we have that provision we have to work around. Or do one just provide water and soda bottle? And I don't know what the estimate's gonna be to feed everybody like that, I have no idea. Probably rest of 50 people at, what, $15 a piece, that'd be $650 to host that first Friday. That's another thing that's coming up too.
And that's what the chamber.
With chamber.
And is that out of the event budget?
That's what I was just
line
gonna say.
item, Or is that?
That's what I'm asking.
Or is that an economic development line?
I would say maybe economic development, but,
Yeah, that might be out of, I mean, I don't know, that's a board decision too, but I can see that not being a community open event, which I thought is what you had that 15,000 budgeted for.
Yeah, I would agree.
No, I guess not a community open events.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe we should kind of better understand what events we kind of plan this year. So we have Easter egg hunt, which you said is 750, just to call it even numbers. And then Fall Fest of 10,000. So that gives us 4,250. And so what other
Then we have
events?
the Halloween deal, I don't know what.
Does that come out of because I thought there was one that came out of the police department's budget.
Well, we never held an event that came out of anything of our budget, that we tried to raise money and do the.
Okay.
But we never had this.
Well, so
before.
it was outside of expenditures by the town,
Yeah.
I guess is maybe what I should have said.
Yeah, but we haven't never had this.
Fair enough.
So that was the discussion, was to include that and maybe a public safety day thing in that same amount, right?
So, and then,
Winter social, that's on the schedule.
okay. So, I guess we have estimates on how much some of these things are gonna run, so we kind of have an idea of budget.
And does Lock Buoy Exchange, do you guys put on all these events that he's listing, or is it really just?
Historically, we have, except for, we haven't done the winter social or the safety day.
You guys done the Halloween?
I always did the Halloween.
And then what about?
Last year, what's his name? The school resource officer picked up the ball on that. So I was a little exhausted from.
Then, the Santa Caps isn't included in this?
No, we use Weld County Santa Cops, that's a Weld County program.
Okay.
I mean, and the reality means we don't have to spend every dime just because it's there.
Yeah.
I was just making sure we also don't
and-
spend through it and still have things that we want. That's more where I was
Yeah.
coming from.
Well, maybe I can work with the mayor between now and the next board meeting to identify what the events are and divvy out the budget based on the events and have a not to exceed amount that the town's willing to spend on a per event basis
Well,
and come up with some agreement.
yeah, and with chief as well, as far as what they're,
Well, if you can get with the chief and,
Yeah.
I can put it wherever.
and do we know,
Draft up an agreement for you to take a look at to react to,
Okay.
and then.
and as far as Samantha, the winter social, you have roughly numbers on that, an estimate, or what you're, huh? Okay. Okay. I didn't know if you knew exactly what you had set up for that or what you were planning, so. Okay.
I did have one more follow-up on that. So the donations that Lackwood Exchange is soliciting are coming into
Actually,
the town?
I won't be soliciting as Lockwood Exchange, I'll be soliciting as the mayor to these companies for Lockwood.
My understanding is these are town events.
Yes.
And a volunteer organization basically does labor for free for the event.
But yeah, I'm not
Somebody-
complaining about that. I'm just, so the money that's being solicited is coming in
To the town. Yeah, it comes in, it goes in with this line item, this $10,000 line item for the fall festival, because we'll be soliciting specifically for the fall festival.
Right, and I guess the
But are you
reason
saying then that the expenditures could exceed 10,000 by whatever, or that's the total budget for it despite whatever
Yeah,
offset you get from donations?
Yeah, it's the 10,000 plus whatever we can
Plus your
garner
plus
outside.
donations.
Yeah, plus the donations, whatever we get to come into the town.
I guess that's what I was asking. So is our policy gonna be that we burn through the donations first and then use whatever we have of the 10,000 if there's 1,000?
We never know what we have for donations or what they're gonna come, and that's kind of that's the if.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
We just don't know what we're gonna have.
So you budget this much in expenditures, you can't, I mean, you budget 15,000, if you spend 20,000 because you got $5,000 in donations, it still shows that you've got.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to appropriate, you're not allowed to spend more than 15,000 if that's all we've appropriated. is
Whether you
15,000.
raise money or not, you're not allowed to go over
Right.
the budget that you put.
Yeah, this is where I was headed. Like, I don't understand how this all works.
Well, we might have to do a budget supplemental to reappropriate additional funds based on how much donations you can get to come in. I mean, that's probably how that has to work. Because I don't
Makes
know how
sense.
you can figure out what in advance that's gonna be without knowing what that revenue is gonna look like. Unless you can just take a best guess based on past year donations.
Yeah, and figure out for the last couple of years,
In which case, if that's what you did,
kind of what we did.
yeah.
So, what were you gonna say, Larry?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts about this. I would really like to have a donors list and the amount from these people, so we keep track of that. I'd also like to see that all the expenses are transparent and auditable in some way, so we know just what everything is costing. I also think that Public Safety Day and the police, Citizens Police Academy should be included in those things also. Part of that being, the police cannot go out, if we take a donor and just beat him to death, time and time again, there's nothing left for the police to go out and get. You see, so I think we have to use some.
Well, they are being incorporated into this.
Well, that's
For
all I'm
Safety Day and
trying
all
to
that
say.
Yeah.
To leave them out is just wrong, so.
No, by all means, no. Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
I still have the issue with the chamber after hours or first Friday, that I brought up to begin with.
Doesn't come out of this thing.
What does it come out? Well, yeah, but we still have to address the alcohol issue, one way or the other. Are we gonna allow alcohol or no? The policy is no alcohol in the building, so we have to make an exception right to that.
I don't think it's relevant to this.
Yeah, currently, right now, we're discussing this item.
Okay.
It's
When is this event?
kind of off of
For April
April
6th.
6th.
Those we do need to know, 'cause
Yeah.
So, okay, so on that, then we'll get together and we'll figure this out. I'll talk to Chief and Samantha, and then we'll get together and hopefully have something brought up and drafted for the next meeting. Okay. Next item, CR4 and Highway 85. Oh, Lord, we're already here, almost 10 o'clock. Go ahead, Grant. No.
So I actually think it'll be pretty quick. So the Tribune, the Greeley Tribune published about 2 months ago, so I think we're a little behind. Some information that Weld County is looking to close quite a few railroad crossings across 85, Highway 85. And one of those locations is County Road 4. I think that has a pretty significant negative impact towards the town, as that's actually a much better way to get across the railroad track than 2 is currently, especially with the 4-way stop, the shape of the tracks, and just the general volume of traffic that goes through on County Road 2. 4 is significantly easier to get through. I think that the town should take a stance opposing this, strongly opposing this, as it would not be in the best interest of the town, in my opinion. And so that's what I kind of wanted to bring up.
So just what I learned, I had a conversation with Weld County's transportation engineer, and she advised me that Highway 85 is in a railroad easement. So the Union Pacific controls, they own the land and they control that. And that CDOT and the railroad company had already signed an agreement for certain intersection closures. Not that we can do a resolution of opposition to that closure, but that's what Weld County told me.
Why is that in there? That's that's
Yeah.
a public right of way. Well, it's like
It's in the railroad right of way is what she told me.
The railroad gave an easement.
Highway 85
Yes.
is gotta be 1,000 yards away. That's not even the railroad's not even that close to 85. That's insane.
You gotta run to exit 27, it's probably a reasonable 300 yards, 400 yards maybe to the.
It's a ways. Yeah, I mean, there's property throughout
It's a
that
block.
strip.
Plus, there's Vestas right there too. They've got all that traffic.
Well, no, I'm thinking towards 85, if they have 85 as part of the easement. Well,
So, a little historical thing, the previous job that I had, I would attend the Weld County Transportation meetings. And this was discussed even years ago back then, when this was the original work trying to figure this out.
Can you turn your mic on?
So, this isn't worse than they're trying to figure some of this out, what Weld County was gonna do with Highway 85, and what the state was gonna do with it, considering that it was all in the railroad easement, most all the way up from Alt to Brighton is almost all the way in, not all of it, but a lot of it is in the railroad easement. They were gonna take it away from the state, and the railroad was gonna take it back. So in this agreement, I don't know what the fund was, right, what they've ultimately done, but the state and Weld County have paid quite a bit of money to the railroad to get this easement to be able to keep 85 going. But in that agreement, during that whole negotiation, was certain intersections that were gonna be closed and, by the railroad, and then other intersections improved by the railroad. And County Road 4 is one of them that's going to be closed. And that's been finished for a little while now, I think.
Make a motion that we have make a resolution to oppose it and file it with Weld County.
Do we have any idea what roads or what intersections?
Hold on,
We
hold on.
have a motion.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
I missed that one.
The resolution.
Resolution opposing the closing of County Road 4 and US 85 and submit it to Weld County.
Can I make an amendment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's not at 85, it's at the railroad crossing near 85 on the highway.
Old 85, yeah.
One, it's Highway
Highway 4
2.
and Road 27.
Is that Highway 4? And County Road 4?
Yeah, County Road 4 and 27.
It's old 85.
So are we having discussion on that motion now?
Yeah.
Point of information.
Point of information, can we clarify exactly which road and intersection that we're talking about? And then secondly, in light of that information, that some intersections are being closed down in order to upgrade and improve other, can we get a little more information on?
There's a list,
the whole
Weld
master
County has
plan?
a list.
Yeah, so,
Because if they're gonna close down one and then invest into another one, it might not be that
that
bad.
investment, is that really in that? I don't think they've said anything about investing elsewhere.
There is, I know they're improving a couple of intersections that are north.
Also, County Road 2 will still be a piece of crap.
That's right, yeah.
That's spectacular.
So I don't know how they
Pretty much.
determined which intersections they were improving.
Yeah, it's
Can you get a
sitting-
copy of the plan or something
Yes,
that outlines
um,
what it is there's going to be doing, so that it's not a resolution drafted sort of in this vacuum of information based on the old Tribune report, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess
Yes.
maybe we can ground that motion until we get some further information. I guess I only have what I have, but I definitely see what you're saying.
What was your suggestion? To hold the motion?
Yeah.
To stay the motion? Okay. What's up?
So to your question about kind of where it's at, so if you go out to 4 and go all the way out to Vestas, there's a railroad tracks right there at Vestas.
Yes, right adjacent to US 85
Yeah,
business.
Denver Street.
Yeah, it's old 85, yeah.
Yeah, so right there, that railroad crossing is planned to be closed. So you can no longer get across 285
Unless you got four-wheel drive.
going that route.
Anyone have anything else?
I use that intersection at least twice a day.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
So is that
especially
motion
with
still
training.
pending, or
Yeah, the
you're
motion's-
withdrawing the motion?
You're gonna withdraw the motion, you're gonna, otherwise I'm gonna call for a vote.
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion on next meeting. I want to get something up to Will County that says we don't want this.
Okay.
Another point of information.
Who was the second on that?
Me,
Okay.
yes, second.
Withdraw.
I'll withdraw.
Okay. Go ahead, what were you saying?
Did you say when they were thinking of doing this, of closing it down? Do you have a timeline?
What it says here is 11 of the 57 crossings that they're planning on closing, which I believe includes 4 is this year.
Are they
So-
closing 6?
What's that?
Are they doing anything with 6?
No, I don't believe so. From the map that they have here, it's 2.5, which I don't think is really all that relevant, and 4. And then the next one that they're closing is 18.5, and then 30, and so forth. So really the ones that have the one that has the biggest impact on the town is 4, because 2.5 is kind of a pain to go through anyway.
It's hard to get to.
Okay. All right, so we're holding off on that pending further information, and I guess we'll put that on the next. Go ahead.
I guess the only follow-up I have is, my understanding was that the county was soliciting input on this, but now what we're hearing from Steve and the chief is that
It's a done deal.
it's a done deal. So what is the point of opposing it?
Well,
That's why I think that honestly, what really needs to happen is we need to get some information
Yeah,
as to
that's-
what's really happening, what the plan is, or what's already been, otherwise it's just, we're all just sort of guessing what's
Yeah.
going on here. To oppose something that we're guessing has happened is
So, again,
lacks credibility, I guess.
we'll push it off to the next meeting and find out one way or the other. Okay, moving on. Mr. Ravis.
Wrote a memo for this year's sanitary sewer cleaning. We only have cleaning or jetting to do this year. There's no videoing. Mainly Zone C, which is Blue Lakes area, kind of the main trunk line that runs through the old lagoon areas, and then from Blue Lakes across the farm fields to the plant. So we'll probably catch some of that area after the planting season this fall, but Blue Lakes and through the old lagoon area, we can get earlier than that. But it's approximately 47,000 feet, and total cost not to exceed is $34,000.
Okay, questions, comments? Trustee Early?
None.
Trustee Straw?
None.
Trustee Morris?
Nothing.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
I love that this stuff just comes to us routinely now. So that's awesome. Thanks. No questions.
Trustee Doherty?
nothing, thanks.
Trustee Ott? I have nothing.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2018 cleaning of the sanitary sewer system by Rainey Environmental in an amount not to exceed $34,000.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Early?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Doherty?
Yes.
Trustee Ott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes, and motion carries.
Thank you.
Hey, have a good night.
That was the first action we took tonight. It's 10 o'clock.
I feel accomplished tonight. I feel like we've done something
3 hours
here.
and we took a
We
vote.
have done something here. I can go home and sleep.
Yeah, we can do
sound.
some exec sessions.
All right.
CR2?
agenda?
Oh, CR2, I just wanted to point out, Attorney Duran, Mr. Stamey, Grant, and I met with Silver Peaks today, got some initial conversations going on how we work out with them to make everything happen with County Road 2. We expect some big news, positive or negative, early next week, and then I'm sure the board will be updated when we receive that news. And there might be some negotiations we have to engage in with them in order to make all of the payment for all of County Road 2 work out. So just be aware that the conversations are happening, and Trustee Doring and I are doing our best to represent the board's kind of overall views on County Road 2.
Okay.
That's all I had, unless they have anything to add.
I think it's really helpful to have a couple of elected officials in these meetings. It just adds more gravitas to the conversation, which I think is helpful. So.
And I'm glad you guys are there.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
We are sometimes.
Okay. Next item is staff reports. Chief?
Everything's good.
Everything's good, all right. People that are supposed to be in jail are in jail, people that aren't,
It's
we're
all
good.
except for what's not, that's job security, we're rolling along. So, if you have any questions,
Anyone have anything for Chief? Oh, you would?
Just because I've seen a couple of comments about home break-ins. Are we seeing any actual uptick in that, or is it just normal?
Well, I don't know about home break-ins. Well, we've had some break-ins in Silver Peak construction homes.
No, I've seen burglaries in Berkshire.
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of any, so I can't imagine that's a big uptick because I'm not aware of any problems. We are taking some action in Silver Peaks because of the construction thefts and things. We're doing some things that I don't really need to talk about in here, but to try to combat that. We're actively working on that.
Okay.
Cool. Anyone have anything else for Chief? No? Mr. Bieber?
Yeah, just a quick one as well. Request for proposals for pavement and concrete work is been posted last week, and then the proposal is due on the 5th next month, and included 3 little diagrams so the board can just take a glance at the areas that we'll be targeting. In case you're curious or interested, Cape Seal will be Cape Sealing Locust, which Cape Seal is, it's an application of chip seal, which you saw on County Road 37, followed by slurry seal, essentially. Locust is in the shape where it's beyond slurry seal. There's so much crack sealing that occurred in that section between Bonanza and 37 that it really needs a thicker layer. So I met with several contractors and just kind of decided to go with that route for Locust. Otherwise, the other area will receive slurry seal, and then we'll target a lot of patches in the Old Town and quite a bit of curb and gutter. And I don't have a map of that. It's because it's just several addresses that we'll be targeting. Also, be in that RFP, there's a ramp that we'll be looking to install at the north side of Lockwood, by the bathroom there. So that's the RFP. Otherwise, parks, we're getting ready to start maintenance activities and starting with the aeration of the turf. Looking to buy some trash cans that are matching instead of having blue barrels and things throughout the parks. We'll have actual receptacles. Got some quotes for nice steel receptacles. We'll pour some pads for those, and then that's it.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Questions? Comments? No?
I'll say one thing. I actually took a tour of the Silver Peaks booster pump station. It was very impressive, and they're doing a good job down there. It's pretty nice. So.
They were there when you were there, right?
They were there, I was not trespassing.
Just like one board member.
I got permission, they made me put this little hat on too.
Oh, so, okay, good, they were OSHA.
Yeah, I was
All right,
OSHA approved.
good deal. All right, Jeff?
Nothing too exciting, reports there. Just want to let everybody know well one's back in service now. That's all put back together and done. Water and wastewater plant improvement stuff is going along good. State was out yesterday to show the contractor what piping modifications we needed to do to prevent some backflow situations that could happen over there. So I think we're all in good order. So.
Okay, got some good razz-wazz happening.
Yeah.
Anyone have anything for?
Is the booster station done officially now, or are we still?
Not quite.
Okay.
It's close.
They've covered, they've covered it with dirt, so
Yeah.
that's a good step. I like seeing that. There's no giant hole there anymore. All right, thank you. Okay. Steve? Samantha?
High Plains Library District. I'm sorry, I was sick at last week. I can't really quite remember where I left it with you all, but I did meet with the board about a month ago, and they all seemed pretty on board with the idea of possibly expanding the services and looking at building A and B. They're actually coming up tomorrow, the board's coming up tomorrow, just to take a look at both buildings. And I asked you to make sure it was clean up in there, but, so.
It's always clean in there.
What are you talking about?
So Resource Central, and I kind of need your all's help on this. We are kind of falling behind. I'm sure you've seen if you're active on social media, we have stuff going every week about Garden in the Box. We really need more residents to purchase the Garden in the Box. So if you can just get the word out to all your friends and neighbors, it's a $25 discount on the different planting options. And I'm not sure if you guys check out the website yourself, but they're really, really cool. They show you like a guide on where to like plant everything to make it look a certain way. So we really need people to purchase those. And also the seminar is coming up next month on the 9th. And that's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a Monday, April 9th. And it's the seminar that they're doing here is plant selection for pollinator custom landscapes. So to go with your, I hope you're going to be there with your bees that you're interested in. So just get the word out about all that. We're putting it out on the website, we're putting it out on Facebook, but we just need more people to sign up for that and put it in the box. Infrastructure updates, you guys have kind of asked about it, but Silver Peak Resource Station is, the insertion valves have been put in, they've been tied into the station. It is not quite on schedule anymore just because of all the issues we had, but it's coming along, it's getting really close to completion. They're regrading the site and they're connecting all the piping that's going on inside the station itself. Wastewater treatment plant is on schedule right now. And then the Silver Peaks water storage tank, I kind of have a cool update about that because that's why David and I were running in here late. We spent the day at one of the elevated water storage tanks in Loveland. It was a composite tank, just touring the facility. I was too nervous to go all the way up, but David did go all the way up to the top.
I did.
And I kind of regret not going all the way to the top, so if it ever presents itself, I may get brave enough. But it was really neat to see that and to just see the way that they construct them, so everything moving along with that as well. And then just for development review update, Relay Filing 2 has filed with the county, so they're moving along as well, and we have meeting with LGI next week. Next week. Just to kind of get off there. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, anyone have questions for Samantha? No? Did you have anything, Steve?
Just real brief, we did our presentation to DOLA for our wastewater treatment grant, and trustees Strzok, Lofgren, and Knott attended that as well, and it shows good support for their board. I think the rest of it all, unless you have any comments.
Okay. Anyone have anything for Steve? And did you have anything? Okay, any trustee comments? Trustee Ott?
I will make it quick. Two things I have are, again, I bring it up now, we are having the first Friday, which used to be called the Chamber of After Hours, on April 6th at the building here. We are expected to provide the food and beverages. There is a restriction on alcoholic beverages here, so I need a direction of the board as to whether we're going to lift that restriction or just serve water and pop. I've already talked to Monica, and all it involves is a couple bottles of that boxed cheapo wine and maybe a few
Some Mad Dog
12 packs,
2020.
yeah, some IPA beer, and that's about it, and some water. But that's up to the board where they want to, or you'd have to rescind it for that one deal, or you'd have to put a
It's
waiver.
your policy, so you can waive it.
No, I'll throw it out to the board for a quick discussion. Where do you fall on it? Trustee Early?
No.
Trustee Strock?
Who are these people? It's Chamber of Commerce, aren't they?
Chamber of Commerce are all like the president of the hospital down here, bank members, business people, people that attend the chamber, people own insurance companies, mortgage brokers, that kind of stuff.
How long will your meeting last?
Lasts from 5:30 to 7:30.
Just a couple hours?
Yeah.
Will serving alcohol really help the whole thing or not?
Can I answer that honestly? I don't know. I've never been to one where they didn't serve it, so I can't answer that. I mean, I know I have a glass of wine during the thing, and Carol has a glass of wine, and that's all we have, and that's all most anybody has, or one beer. I mean, it's not like anybody leaves there. Number one, they have one box of white wine, one box of red wine, and one couple of 6-packs of beer. So how much could you drink when there's 35 people? There isn't that much available.
I'm certain they're all responsible drinkers, but I also appreciate the chief's point of view on it too. I might be willing to make an exception, for this.
Okay. Trustee Morris?
I don't have any overwhelming objection to waiving the provision or granting a variance for this event.
That's pretty big. No. Trustee, well, we already know your answer.
Yeah.
And Trustee Doherty?
I don't have any objection to it.
And Mayor Protem?
We have the policy for a reason, I guess. To me, it's a question of what's the policy there for if we're gonna make exceptions when it's a group we're willing to let be an exception, so I'm a no.
And as am I. I'm a no as well, but I think the ayes have it. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing I mentioned, this is a while ago, but somebody mentioned CPR and that kind of stuff. And since I said we do training for CPR, somebody said if there's ever another meeting to let them know. Well, on April 7th, we're having our crash and burn school where you will be taught CPR and how to burn, take care of somebody that's got severely burned and that kind of stuff. And it's all by licensed paramedics and that kind of stuff. We do it for the 3 sports car clubs in the area are going together, the Rocky Mountain Vintage Racing, SCCA, and NASA. On April 7th, we'll be having a class called a crash and burn school. And you can even get out there with the jaws of life and tear open a car if you want to. So if anybody's interested, let me know and I'll hook you up with it. But it's on April 7th.
Pull the DUI
All right, thanks.
victims out.
Yeah.
Trustee Doherty?
Just a couple of items that came up in the meeting earlier today. We got some feedback that the parks, even in Silver Peaks, are starting to see maybe not vandalism, but also not being taken care of very well. I think kind of piggybacking on what we've heard about the ones in Berkshire as well. So just something to kind of keep an eye out for. And then there was something else, but I don't remember what it was. So that's it.
Okay.
Jewel Street, that is cool. That was the other thing she talked about.
Mayor Pro Tem Opera?
So is our live streaming totally working now and everything is, yay?
I think so.
Okay, good. The guy left, but I just wanted to respond to his request for us to reconsider the pot shops. Everyone knows my position is we should get them in town and it would be great tax revenue, but our citizens said no less than 18 months ago, so I don't see any reason for us to reconsider it right now. Was hoping that we could get like a printout of our goals from the retreat and put it on one of these back walls somewhere, just so that's. What did I write that for? I don't remember. Okay, I don't remember what that's about.
You don't know, I don't know. Trustee Morris?
Yeah, the only thing, I've gotten 2 comments or complaints from some people in Berkshire about cars parking within the site triangle at intersections, and asking if that could maybe be enforced, either code enforcement or warnings or something. And I forget what it is in our code, is it 25 feet?
15, I believe.
15, but they're saying cars are right up to the intersection.
I actually watched one hanging out, parked on the corner, hanging out in the intersection yesterday, but it was up north. I was like, oh.
Parking in Berkshire, chronic problem.
But this was up in Bella Vista yesterday.
Is that what you're talking about, Berkshire?
Berkshire. Particularly, I think the intersection they mentioned was Willow and Lone Wolf.
Yeah, I will, let them know.
Thanks.
But if anytime you get complaints like that, I would love it for you to tell people to call us.
Okay.
I mean, people always say they don't want to call us because they don't want to bother us. But that's what we're here to be bothered. They need to call us so we can take care of the problem.
Thanks, Chief. I'll pass that on.
I encourage anybody to call us.
I always call, nothing ever happens. It's like, you need to call. You didn't call. I can have Chief check the records. You never called. And I have no problem telling him that. All right, you done? Okay. Trustee Strzok?
I think I mentioned this at the retreat. It'd be nice on our packets on the action items and some of the discussion items if we had a staff recommendations for us to be able to look at and consider. Sometimes they have a better hand at what's going on than we do. The other thing is the water conservation thing was a great thing. I actually had them come by my house last year. They do a great job of auditing your water use and all that, but I think you'll find the reality is that when they're done and gone, that there's a big possibility that you're going to be using probably 30% more water. There are statistics in the office that a lot of the other citizens have, after the audit, have used more water. I think it's down to an individual has to make a conscious decision to save that other 30% of water. Also, being said, it would be nice if in our newsletter, maybe we could say something about looking and listening for water in your houses. I imagine that we have a lot of people in this town that have stools that are just constantly running, that they could listen to and realize that they have a problem, or could visually see they have a problem. I think that in itself may save a lot of the citizens. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Trustee Early?
Do we have an update on Verizon? It's already March.
I've actually had several people call me and say.
Their contractor was just getting their permit. I think they just selected their contractor.
From work.
So, into summer?
I don't know what their schedule is now. I can follow up with that.
2018.
We had, I mean, if they start building, it should be this summer.
Okay.
December 31st at 11:59.
Are we doing the state of the town address?
Leave me alone.
I'm so glad to hear we're having 3 Easter egg hunts on the Saturday before Easter.
I know, right?
We're gonna have a lot of happy kids.
Where's the third one happening?
Blue Lakes, Berkshire. an hour.
Berkshire's
Oh,
doing
Berkshire's
one?
having one?
That's what we got just before the meeting, right?
No,
that's
Oh, that was
Bella
Blue Lake.
Vista. Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry, I
Bella
thought you
Vista.
said Berkshire.
I was like, what?
Okay, well, if we have two then, that's still plenty.
Our HOA doing something would have shocked me, so.
Huh? You are?
No.
Well, here comes all of them.
Anything else?
Yes. I know that sometimes we have to change agendas, but there's a whole lot of flipping and flopping going on, and I'm just hoping we can contain that and line them out to start with. And I know emergencies happen once in a while, but it's getting to be like a every meeting thing. And then the last thing is and I talked with the mayor about this, I think he's gonna discuss it, as about we might be losing the Weld County Food Bank, which I volunteer at. So I will leave that to him because we had a discussion on that, but that's all that I had.
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk about that?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna bring it up. First, I just want to ask, have we heard any updates for Santiago's?
No, I reached out last week. It was either Monday, it was either yesterday or last week, but I haven't heard back from them at the time.
And I've had discussions with different people about the food bank. You know, the reality is it isn't up to this board or the town to go out and find the volunteers for it. But it is, from my perspective, it is still something I'm concerned about. I want to make sure we do get the volunteers. I'm actually going to be going down there on Monday and volunteering, but I'm also going to be talking to those people that are in line, because we get 80 to 100 people standing in line down there, but no one's volunteering to stand there and help pass out the food, but you're going to collect it. You stand, some of them get there an hour early and stand there. It's like, well, why would you not come? So I'm going to be broaching that on Monday, because they're going to cancel coming here, which amazes me, because they go to Hudson twice a month and they come here once a month. That's really odd to me. So, were you going to say anything there?
No, just that I agree with that, and I'm also curious, Nate, you volunteer with them frequently, you said, so why do they need 15 people to serve 80?
There are 10 stations, and you need people that need to maybe bag stuff, and then they have to hand it out. So you have to have at least 10 people on the line. You have someone signing people in. And then you need 5, 6, 7 men to carry 40-pound boxes to bring them up to be distributed. And at Hudson, when we were stumbling over each other, we had so many volunteers last Monday. And then last time, I had to do 3 stations last month.
Well, that's...
I'm not complaining about that. It's just hard to do. And so you need 15 to 20 people. But we have more people at Loch Bowie than we do at Hudson or Kingsburg, and yet we can't get 15 volunteers down there.
I know, well, that's the other part that I wanted to give you a hard time about. You're going up there and volunteering. How come none of those guys are coming down here to volunteer?
A couple of them do, but I don't know. Some of them drive clear from Fort Morgan to come to Hudson. So, but a lot of people come to Tacona. But it's just, it used to be we didn't have any trouble. Now all of a sudden we got trouble, and they're saying we're just going to cancel it. And I'm like, no,
And I know quite a few people that actually use it, and I'm going to make that plea to them on Monday.
So, and then plus they do 10 or 15 dry commodity boxes that they leave at the senior center for the seniors to pick up. So that would probably go away also.
I did have one more point. I think another part of their email was as concerned about the safety of the location.
Well,
is
that's...
there any possibility we could let them use our parking lot if it's only once a month, or is that something we're not?
I heard that the school would let them use where the buses parked that one Monday, but I guess they've never gone to ask them, because I brought that up a couple times too, but that would be perfect. It's all cement.
Yeah,
they can park along the park.
Using out here wouldn't be feasible. This is too small.
Yeah.
This parking lot's too small.
But when Santiago's opens up, that's gonna be where if that plot sells, they're not gonna be able to park there. So, but it's just, there's 80 to 100 people that come to that line and they probably need the food.
Go ahead.
They did ask if we could put a call for volunteers on our website and social media, if that's okay.
Well,
Do that.
It's I have a conflict with that. I struggle with it, but it's...
I mean, I don't even struggle with it. It's the same issue I brought up a million times. If we start opening up to one, we have to open it up to all. And they're a great organization. And I know everyone hates on me for saying this, but we can't do that. We can't say you're great.
I concur.
Me too.
That's my dilemma also. So, Anyway, all right, anyone have anything else?
Yes, I move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, and we are adjourned at 10:25.
You didn't like me speaking up there. I hope I'm never one of them 100 people.
Surely there's plenty of them that could help out.
So